Okay, we are live. Yes, early morning here in Norway. My God, as they say. But what can you do? Yeah. So, I said yesterday that I'm going to do live streams at 6 o'clock in the morning, Norwegian time. But you know what? I'm just going to do them whenever I feel like. It will be around this time. Now it's 5 in the morning. But the way I do it is that I wait when I wake up, and sadly, very often I wake up too early. Like I struggle with sleep, you know, and then I have to go out and I do my writing. And when I finish my writing, 1,000 words every day, then I will start a live stream. So it all depends on how well I sleep and how fast I'm writing. Yeah. So that's how it's going to be. And I hope that it's not ideal because YouTube love scheduled stuff. But I'm not going to do that. And also, I just don't have time for trolls, honestly. So Danny is gone. Straight out of the chat. Okay. Now, I want to say hello to the good people here in the chat. Let's see here. Altera says the live stream doesn't show up on my subscription page. Well, I'm sorry about that. At this point, I've given up on YouTube. It's I don't know. It's you can bang your head against the wall. That wall being YouTube all day long. You're never going to fix the problem. KP Heathen, good to see you. Impish little Kentaur, how are you doing? Let's talk about something else. And Green-Eyed Lady Erik Hofer from Oklahoma. Your name is very Norwegian. Austin Baron Arcanus, Wes is here, Grasslands G, Abdulaziz is here, and Bob is here. Nico, Vanitas 35, from the Netherlands, and many other people. Wonderful. We will be talking about Trump a little bit. He has his fingers in the in the thing, because here's let's jump straight into it. Let's jump in. That's what they say. The cool people, native English speakers. Let's jump straight in. Flintstone Silver, hello from Russia. Yes, now I did take a look at the news just before I went on here. And here's a theory or a scenario, right? So that there are peace talks between Trump and Putin. And what I read now, I hope I'm wrong, but I suspect I'm right, that the talks between Trump and Putin yesterday didn't lead to a ceasefire. It didn't lead to a ceasefire. And that is, of course, a tragedy because people are being killed. But what if, and here's the theory, here's the scenario, what if Putin's regime doesn't want peace? What if they are quite happy continuing the war? What if they believe that Ukraine should not exist? And what if the conditions for stopping the killing, would be that, well, basically Ukraine cease to exist, or that there is only a tiny little bit in the west left of Ukraine. What if that is actually the case? I'm not saying that I know this. It's just a scenario, and we need to explore that scenario. I know this is heavy stuff, at least for me, so early in the morning. But if that is the case, then Trump will be unsuccessful with the peace talks, and his promise of bringing peace to Ukraine he won't fulfill that promise, will he? And I believe that because of Trump's persona and so on, that could lead to a stop in the communication between Trump and Putin. I believe it could even lead to some hostility between those two people and between USA and Russia. I don't know, but what if? I mean, we need to look at the what ifs here. What do you think? If that is the case, if that's what's going to happen, then what happens? Then what happens? What do you think will happen? If Trump feels that his pride has been hurt by Putin, then what would happen? I don't know, but it's worth looking into. Yeah, I think you're right, Wes. Unfortunately, it unfortunately would get much more chaotic. But we don't know this at this point. But I think that it's a very risky game that they are playing, and we will be the victims of that if something doesn't go according to plan. Calypso Kin says, I feel it will all work out. No, I won't call you crazy, because I think that's what we must hope for. And as I've said before, at this point, I don't care about what some people call a just peace or a fair peace. I just want peace. And I don't think that Ukraine getting back the occupied territories, it will never happen. Not even if they take all fighting age people in Europe and just pour them into the battle and have them all killed like me. It would still, it wouldn't change that. I don't think so. So, yeah. Slimo says, barbecue and metal jam on my farm tonight. Everyone needs to lighten up. That's a good advice there. Cherokee Twilight says, I think America and Russia will become economic friends. Yeah, could happen. Well, it seems like that is going to happen. Yeah. Okay, just wanted to share some thoughts about that. And let's move on. How are you all doing? I hope that you are doing fine. I think at this time of the year, day, night, there will be mostly people from the Americas here. We had one guy from Russia, guy or girl, can't remember the nickname now, but one person from Russia. Now, what's the time in Russia now? Well, it's morning in Russia. Yeah. So, Green-eyed lady says if Trump and Putin do not talk, Putin will continue the war. Yeah. Yeah, Clint, let's move on to the situation in the EU. But not only the EU, but also some of the other European countries, the countries outside of the EU, with immigration. And at this point, I'm so sick and tired of accusations of racism. And if you have a nuanced and balanced view of the whole thing, if you try to relate to the facts, then you will be, wow, Nero, thank you so much for the donation. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you. You're so great. Thank you. Woot, it says. Yes. Yeah, so the immigration issue here. Oh, hold on. Alarm there. Yeah. So let's see here. I need to sort things out here. Yes. Yeah, so the immigration issue. Now, since there will be mostly people in North America, let's just let me just tell you, because you guys get things wrong a lot of the time concerning Norway, at least. Norway. Okay, so some facts here. Okay, Norway is not part of the EU, and Norway basically has, well, it's very minimal, the immigration into Norway. It's very minimal. Okay, if you look at the numbers, not so much. At least not so much compared to other countries. Okay. The UK is not part of the EU anymore, but there's a lot of immigration into the UK, and there's a lot of immigration into some EU countries, but not all of them. So there's a huge difference concerning which country we are talking about. The immigration here is mostly the immigration from places outside of the EU or Europe is, I believe, I might be wrong here, but I think it's mostly from North Africa and the Middle East and places like Afghanistan and so on. So basically the problem here is that we get a lot of what some people would like to say, call fighting age males into the countries here. And that's an issue. Now, last time I went to the UK, England, I went to England. I could see how quickly that country is changing, and that's because of the immigration. And I've said before that it's too much. It's far too much. It needs to stop. It's an island, and there are too many people there already. Okay. My personal opinion is that we should help people who need help. So we should help people like who are actual refugees from war. We can help them in neighboring countries. We can take some people into our countries. But I do not think that it's a good idea to allow for immigration, huge numbers of people from other cultures getting into your country. I don't think that's a good idea, because it will change your country, and that's what we're seeing in England now. And all of this is you might say it's obvious, but it's not so obvious because people get very emotional about these things, and I can understand that. People say, "Oh, we should help refugees. We should open our borders. That's the Christian thing to do." And some people say that they're all bad. They're all bad. People with dark skin are all bad people. Proper racism. And of course, there is that as well. There are some proper racists out there. But it's not racist to point out the problems that we have gotten here because of immigration. So, yeah. Deacon Bautista, thank you so much for the donation. That's very kind of you to say. I always say it's more important to ask questions than to pretend that we have all the answers, and let's see here. Yeah, well, okay. So another thing here that we need to look into is that the immigration is seen as something that is needed, and it's seen as something that will be needed because we are not having enough babies. And so the native people are not reproducing enough. So we have an aging population in Europe, not only in Europe, but that the idea is that so you have to get more young people who can work and pay taxes to support older people who can't work, who are supposed to get a pension, right? Now that plan is not going to work out. Because when you look at the numbers, well, last time I looked at the numbers, people from certain cultures they cost more than they contribute, according to the numbers. Now, that does not mean that any person with, for instance, a Afghani background is like that, a burden to the economy. That's not what I said. I said that statistically it is the case. So it's not the case for everyone, but on average, it is the case. So, yeah. Okay, so I am very tired. I wish I could sleep more. But people are saying here, yeah, New World Order. Who can afford kids when you can't pay taxes and rent? That is so true. That is so true. And a lot of people are thinking exact that. How, I mean, they're thinking, I can't have kids because I can't pay my bills. So, I mean, the the economy and the decisions, we have talked about this before, the economy as a whole and the political decisions we are seeing are short-sighted, because here's what needs to be done. You don't need to be a genius to figure this out. You need to lower taxes a lot. You need to put some laws and regulations into place concerning food prices so that healthy food, which is whole foods like vegetables, some fruit, meat, and fish, that needs to be much cheaper so that people stay healthy, right? They need to lower taxes. They need to make healthy food cheaper. And there are other decisions as well that should be put in place. For instance, you should get support from the state much more than you get now. I don't know how that is in other countries. It should be financially much easier to raise children. The state, through taxpayers' money, should support you as a mother and a father when you have kids. Because if we can't make people have more kids, we're going to, the culture, the society, everything is going to crumble. It won't be sustainable in just a couple of decades from now. It's not going to be sustainable. And that's why I'm saying that if you're younger than me, and I think I'm right at the limit when it comes to getting a pension when you get old. Do I count on me being 52 getting a pension when I get old? No, I wouldn't bet money on it. I think what's going to happen is that they will raise the age for pension. So now they're talking 70. So, raising it from 67 to 70. And they will keep saying that lie. Oh, people are, they get so old now, and so they can work longer. It's so great they can work longer. So very soon it's going to be 75. Basically, you're supposed to work till you drop so that you're not a burden to society. And that is also why I think that we should check out of this society. It's going to kill you one way or the other. And before that, it's going to make your life miserable. I'm sorry to be negative here, but I have felt that myself. I am feeling it. And it's just not viable. It's not a good deal, you know? So how do we do that? Well, we have to pay the bills and all of that. Now I'm getting into something I've talked about before. You can live a very different lifestyle. You can do that. It is possible. Buy a van, live in your van, drive around, eat whatever you need to eat. Try to get some healthy food. You can fish, maybe. I don't have all the solutions, but I know that this idea that get an education and work yourself to death. Why the hell would we do that? I've been doing it. I've been doing it my whole life. I'm 52 now, and I'm sick and tired of it. And I've never had like a real job, but I have to pay the bills as well. YouTube won't pay YouTube. I do appreciate the donations here, absolutely, but YouTube will not pay the bills, of course. And some people out there will say, "Oh, it's not a real job. Oh, you're so lazy." Yeah, I work 60-hour weeks most of my life because I am a novelist, and you know, I do YouTube as well. Um, so yeah, 52. It's young these days. Yeah, but you get tired. I can promise. You get tired. Uh, so yeah. Now, so so that's the thing, and when you add to the whole equation things like the crazy stuff that they are doing now in Norway. I'll tell you what they're doing. The Norwegian pension fund is one of the biggest investing funds in the world. It's massive. And they found, they figured that our politicians here, they figured that let's just spend a lot of that money on weapons and aid to Ukraine to keep the war going. What a fucking brilliant idea, you know? So thank you very much for that. But they're saying this is an investment in our freedom. And I think there are people out there that are so conditioned to not think that it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. Um, and people will actually think that, oh, we need to punish the Russians, keep the war going in Ukraine with our pension fund money. Heathercliff, they are using it for foreign wars now. That's exactly what they're doing. Isn't it great? Oh, it's so wonderful. But there are people here, they think that, they just swallow the whole lie when the politicians say that, this is so important because it's an investment in future freedom. And the idea is that if we don't keep that war going, the evil Russians will invade Norway. And when I hear public statements coming from our prime minister and so on, when it's at that level of stupidity, no, it's not. They're not stupid. They are assuming that people are stupid, and many people are. It's is that what gaslighting? Is that what they call gaslighting? I just get. I just want to close the door, and no, I've had enough of this now. You don't want to even relate to the world out there when it's like that. So this is an unpopular opinion in Norway and in many other countries, I guess. And the Ukrainians, bless the Ukrainians, by the way, as the Christians would say. But I have gotten some very angry messages from people in Ukraine. They have been, there have been quite a number of them who are saying that we can't say this, but we want the war to stop. Just stop the killing, as like Gun Cotton here says, stop the killing. But also, I do get some messages from Ukrainians. They listen to what I've said here on the live stream and seen my videos, and they are very angry at me. And I'm stupid and naive. And so I think they are at I get it. It's very emotional there. Of course, you get emotional when you live in that situation. But yeah, no, it's they don't like that. They think that they are the Norwegian pension fund should absolutely be spent on the war in Ukraine. It will be gone. I need to find that number, but I think in 10 years. In 10 years from now, if they continue like this, gone. And the fun thing is that in 10 years is then I'm 62. Yeah, so thank you very much for that. Altera says, and will it actually even end up in Ukraine? Good point. Good point. Well, Jeff Willis, that's an interesting question. What do you think about the idea that nationalism doesn't work for the world anymore? Too short-sighted and too self-interested, and now we need a new model. Well, it depends on what kind of nationalism and how it's used. I think it can be a good thing. I think Norwegian nationalism is largely a good thing because it's positive, it's not exclusive. We are quite good at including other people in the Norwegian identity and so on. So, let's see here. But it can also be used in a very negative way. And here's another unpopular opinion. The Christian nationalism in the USA, that's a combination of two ideologies that go together like oil and water, or mix like oil and water, or actually, no, they mix quite well, I would say. But it's a very dishonest and cynical way. I can't see how that kind of exclusive nationalism can go together with the Christian message or the message of teachings of Jesus at all. I'm not a Christian, but that's how I see it. I might be wrong. The Christians can fight among themselves about that, I guess, but I think nationalism historically has been used by tyrants and dictators to keep people following their agenda. If you look at, Hitler, Mussolini, and those were fascists, of course, but it's an interesting concept, by the way, that nationalism can the wrong kind of nationalism is very close to fascism, if you get what I mean there. It doesn't have to be, but it's certainly one of the pathways into fascism. Jeff Willis says, Bjorn, could there be a better model than nationalism, one that doesn't put us into totalitarianism? I absolutely think so. I think that if we get back to, identity, ethnic identity, and so on, then that's a good thing. Because it's not exclusive. It's rather like when you have strong roots, you're more secure in yourself and you're more open to other people who are different. And I think that, for instance, I've always thought that those who hate gay people, people who are very some of these and some of these right-wing social media influencers in the USA. What's his name? He got very popular. John Walsh, Mike Walsh, John Walsh, with the "What's a Woman" thing. And Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh. Okay, they seem so obsessed with trans people and gay people that it's almost a little bit suspicious. Come on, I mean, when you make that your livelihood, come on. I mean, I don't know, but if there are any gay people here or trans people or whatever, in the chat, if that let us know, because I suspect that those people there, their obsession with gay people and trans people and all of that, it's a bit like there's a fascination there, right? Why are they so fascinated? Is it just the money? Are they doing it just for the money? Or I don't know. It's just I don't know how it works. Now I'm using the term trans people, and I've talked about this before, and I don't believe in that new whole concept, trans people. What is that? I don't even know what it is. And for instance, now we are supposed to accept that there are non-binary people. There are no non-binary people. That's impossible, you know? But if people want to call themselves that, I'm not going to get all worked up about it. It's not an important issue to me. Okay. So, yeah. Where did I go with this? Yeah, when you have strong roots, when you have in your identity or your ethnic identity and pride in that, I think you become more accepting is not the right word, but you avoid the insecurity that leads to things like hate, racism, and all of that. But I know what it's like if you're of Germanic, not German, but Germanic origin, and if you have pale skin, and especially if you're a man, and especially a middle-aged man, and straight, it is the worst. We are the worst. We are supposed to be ashamed for breathing. I get it. That's how it is. Let's see. I absolutely agree. Kingdoms and kobolds there. Gender dysphoria sufferers being told that cosmetic surgery and hormone treatments will make them feel better about themselves without addressing the core issues. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right there. And why can't we instead be more accepting of people, the fact that people are different? You can be a man and quite feminine. That's fine. And you can be a woman and quite masculine. That's fine as well, and all of that. Guncut1 says, I'm a 66-year-old white man and I am not evil. Well, you don't know it yourself, you see, because that's the thing. I'm joking now, of course, but you don't know it yourself. But because of who you are, you're evil, and you get together with other middle-aged, straight, white males, and we conspire. We make plans to make life difficult for so-called people of color and women. And yeah, that's what we do every weekend. So, Erik Hoff, well, yes, thank you for being here. Hope to see you soon. Let's see. Yeah, well, absolutely. This race thing is a problem, and you're saying that Grosland's 9-year-old Caucasian children are told that they're evil. Yeah, there's been some examples of that. I think, was that in the USA or was it England? In school, that they were told that they're born racist or something like that. All of that. It was the USA, both. Okay, that agenda, with I can't remember what they call it now. The idea that you're born into a system that makes you racist. What's it called? They have these education programs about it. Critical race theory. Yeah. And Clint, it is very close to that concept of original sin, isn't it? Yeah. And I would say that this race thing, critical race theory, and all of that, it is almost a religion without a God, you know? That's the most dangerous kind of religion, some say. Um, uh, yeah. Well, that's kind of you, the Osman Lee. Thank you. Ghost user says in UK they are told they must learn the Quran now, but in some schools but the Bible is forbidden. I haven't heard that, but I think we should read the Quran, and we should read the Bible, and we should read many other important books. The problem, I would say, with when it comes to Islam, and I think Islam is not a good guide for a good life at all. And people should read the Quran, and they should read the Bible. And the Quran is the reason I'm not a Muslim, and the Bible is the reason why I'm not a Christian. So, yeah. Yeah, no books should be forbidden or banned. Earthlab USK. I absolutely agree. Space Monkey says interpretation. I think some of the messages in both the Quran and the Bible are so clear, so concise and clear that you don't need an interpretation there. And yeah. And how many Christians have actually read the Bible? Not many. I was shocked when I saw so I understood that most Christians have never read the Bible. But anyway, Oh, we have Paddy here. Paddy has a unique take on history, Norwegian history now. Catholicism created Norway. Wow. Okay. Ghost user says, well, most people who believe scientists have never read Newton either, to be fair. Well, you don't believe scientists. That's the difference. You don't believe in science. You don't believe in scientists. It's a method. And this is very closely tied to why I say we ask questions here. We don't have all the answers. I would say, science is about asking questions. Religion is about just making up some answers in most cases. How old is Norway as an independent country? It's very difficult to answer that. You had Harald Hårfagre, Harold Finehair, who is seen as the first Norwegian king. But the areas that he ruled over were a much smaller area than Norway today. So it all depends. And of course, there was Norway existed before that. Of course, it's just that he is seen as the first guy who ruled over all of the Norwegian areas, although that was not all Norwegian areas. Yeah, so it is. Norway is not. It's an old country, but not as old as other European countries that are further south, of course, because we had a glacier here. So, yeah. Norway was, the Norwegian identity is based on a Germanic understanding of the universe. Most people know the Vikings. But we had a culture here and a society here before the Vikings, of course. So it's quite old. I can't tell you how old because I can't remember. It depends on how you define it, and also I can't remember. They found the remains of the first Norwegian, actually. Well, the first one they have found so far, and I can't remember how old those remains were. Yeah. What do I think about Keir Starmer? Well, I don't know the person, but the decisions he has been making, I don't agree with them, and I don't know how much of the decisions are up to him. I don't know. I don't know. Let's see here. Let's see. Yeah, it is interesting when you look at human history, and in some countries, of course, those countries were the first civilizations. Um, the countries where we have found remains of the first civilizations. You could kind of go back very far, and it's again, it's I don't know, I can't remember the numbers, but it's funny that we have people claiming like the young Earth creationists, I think they're called, but we have written records that are older than that, so it's funny, in a way. Torque Mother says, everyone go back to bed. I hope not, because then I would be sitting here talking to myself. Yeah. Scott says, evil can be stopped, stupidity is harder. I think that's very true. That's very true. Yeah. I think that we are living in times now where civilization is changing. The human experience, as some people like to call it, is changing rapidly. And this has to do with the fact that we are now in we are moving from industrialization to post-industrialization. And I feel that we are, if we don't rise up, if you don't rise up for yourself, you're going to be a victim of that shift. Yeah, it's a transition phase. They're going to have you work until you drop. What comes after this, I don't know. But I don't believe in this idea that it will be a paradise where we don't have to work. Robots and AI will do all the work, and you will get everyone will get the universal basic income. I don't believe that. I am much more afraid I'm too cynical to believe in that. But we need to take back control. And I always get back to this idea that, we should live differently. I don't know how. I don't know how, but I know that what most people are doing now, which is just working, and they work to pay the bills, and they are not able to save up money, they're not able to build up wealth. That's not a good life. And it's I don't have the solutions. I don't, but you know, at least I can point at the problem. And some people will say that it's always been like that. It's always been like that. Unless you're part of the so-called elite, you're just going to work and work and work. And that's your life. But that's not true. It's actually a very modern thing. And by modern, I mean it came with the industrialization. So we have only been living like that for a few hundred years. Now it depends on which culture, which civilization we're talking about. But if we go back in time, you will arrive at a very different type of existence where you wouldn't work that much. You would have much more time just to exist. And I'm not saying that everything was great, but I'm saying that people did not work that much. And people were much closer to nature, and they had much more time to be with their loved ones. So I think we need to get back to that. You know, now I'm never going to say that you shouldn't go to university. Never going to say that. If that's what you want to do, that's where your interest is. That's what you should do. If you have a talent for abstract thinking and so on, you should pursue that. But it's not for everyone, you know. And but also we need to add to the equation that when it comes to jobs, of course, there are lots more interesting jobs for you if you have a university education. Let's not kid ourselves. That being said, we still have that problem that I just talked about. We get into this system of acquiring debt, living to work every day, long hours, and you spend most of your life that way. And it's not good. It's not good. So I don't have the solutions, and I don't know. I don't even know if this is something that people find interesting. Gun Cotton One says, lesbian folk dancing degrees do not own cash. No, maybe not. But most university degrees are very useful. Become a physician, become a orthopedic, become an engineer, become a philosopher. Philosophers, it's used as an example. Oh, that's so. It's useless. No. First of all, it is an important thing to study, and also it's actually philosophers are sought after in the private sector. What else is there? Biology, all the STEM fields, but not only those. Understanding culture, understanding history, understanding how social media works. You know, all of these things are things we take for granted. We live in an area where people think they're all fucking experts because they have a massive computer in their pocket. Starlight Footprint says a lot of degrees don't get you cash. How can you say that? That's the most likely way. If you have a useful, good, high degree from a university, you will. I know this is a popular thing. It's very popular. It's very popular. It's this, and it's part of this anti-intellectual movement. It's a very sad thing. Listen, you need to wake up. And if you get, let's say you're a master's in, I don't know, um, some kind of engineering, or you're a master's in psychology, something like that. You will get a good job, and it will be a high-paying job. Let's not kid ourselves. So that is a fact. And University of Wokeness, listen. We need to be able to think. We need to be able to understand that being woke and useless degrees are not the same as being university educated. This is important to understand, because what I'm seeing now is a lot of kids, they're on social media and they hear these fucking idiots saying that, oh, you don't need an education, you don't need, look at Elon Musk, he won't try, and if you have the mindset and the talent for a higher education, you should absolutely consider that. Do not listen to the people in the chat here, who will say that it's useless. If you're a young person listening to this and you want to have a university education, you think that you could pull it off, I think you should go for it. And it doesn't matter so much what you study. And this is a myth. You need to study the STEM fields. You need to study something that is useful. No. Employers will look at your degree and they will see that as a marker for your ability to commit to a task. Now, not all university degrees are useful, and not all are seen as a marker for commitment. But I think you will figure this out. If you're a young person listening to this and you want to have a university education, go for it. Do not listen to those social media influencers who say that it's useless, because it's not. And it will be very good as well for your personal development. The anti-intellectual movement is a very sad movement, and those who like to use the term psyop, well, that's one for you right there. Because the people in the ruling class who hire each other into positions of power, they don't want people to be educated. They don't want people to ask questions. They don't want people to challenge them. So they want people to be just enough educated to operate the machines. Toby says, I'm getting bored, Bjørn. Well, maybe this is not for you then. And now people will be arguing against what I just said. We will leave them to do that. Kevin says, in the USA, most colleges indoctrinate, they don't teach anymore. Really? Are you completely certain of that? Because it's a very, very big statement to make. It's a very big statement to make. And I don't think it's true. I think that those who make the most noise, that's the blue hair nose ring people. That's what you see, but that's a minority. Most people who go to university, they go there to learn something useful and also to learn how to learn. Yeah. Green-eyed lady says, Bjorn, what is the reason why the cost of USA university tuition is so high? Well, I'll answer that because many people have looked into that. And if you go to, it's basically part of that anti-intellectual movement, which has been prevalent in the USA for decades now. It's, Ian says depends on where you live. No, it doesn't depend on where you live. If you go to university and study to be someone who operates broken bones, it's not going to be about your politics. It's going to be about operating on broken bones. And trust me, you will want someone university educated to operate on your leg if it's broken. And I could give you many more examples. So the anti-intellectualist movement is something that we see in cultures with certain markers, certain things that we can recognize. When you have that, you're closer to totalitarianism than if you look at societies, cultures, nations with a high degree of education. A high degree of education is usually a marker of nations and cultures with very little totalitarianism. There's a reason why fascists and communists will burn books, why they will put the intellectuals in gulags, why they will do all of that, because they do not want people to ask questions. So in like in Norway, where I'm from, we look at education the same way as we look at roads. We know that in a few years, in the future, we will need people who are educated. Because even if you're not an educated nation, you will lose. Because it's a competition, it's a worldwide competition between nations. And that's why we use taxpayers' money to pay for higher education in this country. And I believe that's a very wise, it's a very wise investment. And it's seen as an investment here, like roads. In the USA, it is not seen as an investment. And that's why you have to pay for university education yourself, which means that a lot of talent is lost. You only get the people who have parents rich enough to support that education in the colleges and universities, which I think is you can't do it in a nation with a lot of people, because you will still have probably enough talent among those who are rich enough. And you could say, well, it's not fair, and it's not fair, but well, it doesn't matter really when it comes to the competitiveness of the nation long term. But when you kill the middle class, like we are seeing in Europe now and the USA, you're not going to have many people who have parents rich enough to send their kids to university and pay for that. And that's a problem. You won't see the problem now. You won't see it next year, but you will see it in 10 and 20 years. So what you will see then is that these corporations, they will hire people from other countries. My bet is China and India. And they will outsource a lot of stuff to those countries. So anti-intellectualism and discouraging young people from going to university is, it might be tempting, might be emotionally satisfying to some people, but it's not smart. It really is not. So yeah, Einstein, if he missed out on higher education because of lack of funding, yeah. So this is, I mean, there's a lot of, you know what I think it boils down to? I think it boils down to envy on one side, and university people looking down upon those who do not have a university education, and both are silly and stupid. Shouldn't be doing that. I mean, it doesn't say anything about your quality as a human being, what kind of education you have or do not have, and it, you know, it has to do with your interests as well. Some people are more tactile, I think the word is. They like to work with their hands. Some people are not that good at doing that, and they're more abstract in their thinking. So we're different, and that's great, you know. Now, Diablo Blanca, Bjørn's misconception that only people with wealthy parents can go to university. That's not what I said. That's not what I said. You'll just have to scroll back. I don't care repeating myself. So, yes, Carola, thank you for saying that. University helps you to learn how to learn and get access to information. It is not just about the degree. Absolutely. And that is so important now. Of course, we have misinformation in mainstream media. We have misinformation in alternative media. And we live in a time and age now where there are people out there who believe the earth is flat. And they didn't start out believing that. It's because of misinformation. It's because of lack of critical thinking. You know, a term that I hate, it's my truth. My truth. Well, my truth is your truth, because there's only one truth. Do I know what is true? Sometimes I do think I know that, but it's a big word, the truth. That's a big word. So thank you, the Osmanli. Thank you for saying that. So it's like, because of all the information out there, it's so important to learn how to learn critical thinking. Now, it needs to be said that in what I've heard is that, of course, in some settings in universities and colleges, maybe not so much in Scandinavia, but of what I've heard is, about the USA, basically because the USA is very dominant in social media. So when it comes to critical thinking, what I've heard is that there are some things in universities in the USA now that is obviously not true, but you can't question that because they've moved away from facts and they've incorporated a belief system. And I'm, of course, talking about the woke thing, which is not obviously not everywhere, and it's not like that's the only thing that happens in universities, but certainly is that. It's like my daughter is studying biology at a high level, and in the first biology book there about sex, which is we wouldn't be here without that. There was they had to put something in the book, saying something along the lines of this is biological facts. It's not what's the word, the difference between sex and gender, something about that. You would never. So but that was all of it. There wasn't any more than that, and they had put that in the book just not to offend the easily offended. But it's crazy that they have to do that, because this is, it's just a bit crazy. It of course it doesn't affect anything in the book. It's just that they put this little frame there with clarification. Oh, we're not talking about gender here, we're talking about biology. But I'm sure that in some people would be offended by that as well. But I'm very happy that when you go to university and you study biology, it's not affected by the woke stuff, at least as far as I know, at least not in Norway. So Hotep says, hot take, do not go to university if you're a snowflake. That's true, because in university you should be challenged. You should be your perceptions about things will be challenged. It's part of your intellectual growth. Absolutely. Homeplan says, the only political thing I remember from college was a Republican rally near the sorority house. Yes, I know, Ian. The Earth is not round; it has a bulge at the equator. Yes, I learned that myself. Yeah, that's it is. It is round, but it's like it's English. The English word is a sphere. But it's a bit wider at around the waist, like many people. Jeff Willis says, if you shoot a long-distance projectile, you will quickly learn that you have to account for the curvature of the Earth, not just gravity. How, if you, this is interesting, right? If you imagine if you can shoot a projectile that the gravity, it goes so far that the gravity won't pull it down until many miles, if that's possible. I don't know, but if that's possible and it goes in a straight line, then how, let's say, if you have 10 miles out, how far up would it be from the ground? If you, um, I don't know. I don't know. But I read that there's a lake, very long, the biggest inland lake in Norway, and I've driven past it many times. It's quite boring, to be honest with you, to drive that road along that lake. And I think that's where you have the gas station, very famous because it's called Bull-Hansen. Danish people stop there when they come here, and they take selfies outside of the sign, Bull-Hansen. It extra points to anyone who knows what bolle, Bolle, means in Danish. But anyway, so I read somewhere that if you tie a rope to the beach up north in that lake and to the south, and you pull it so that it's a completely straight line, like a wire straight line. Was it 10 or 15 meters, something like that? It would be then below the surface in the middle. No, actually, no Danish people here, but Grasslands G, YouTube would block my guess. I think you're right then. It's in Danish that means having sex. So thank you, Diller Trolls. Yes, thank you for saying it out loud there. Yes. So it's very funny. It's very funny. Yeah. But well, maybe I didn't tell you. But why is it called that? Because that word bolle is a Norwegian for a bun, a sweet bun that you eat. So and they are famous for their sweet buns there. Yes, very funny. Yeah. And that there is also, the Venom movies. Now I'm changing the topic a little bit, but this is so funny. Yes, the Osmanli, yes, you're all great. Well, and thank you. The Venom movies. That guy who he has this alien that covers him like this black with a big mouth, and the Marvel character. I saw that it's the new movie. Maybe it's in theaters or maybe online already. It's but there's this evil god, the parasite god or something like that, and I hope that they do not, if it's it has come to Norway, or yes, Kingdoms of Kobolds, that's what it's called, Knull. That's what they call that movie, Venom. And I won't say it. It's rude. I can't say it, but it's, yes, Knull. It's very funny because that means having sex in Norwegian. So yeah. Yes. I don't know if they will. They have to translate it. They have to use a different name. because everyone will go, you know. So, yeah. uh, they just spelled it as Null. Well, that's funny too, because that means zero in Norwegian. Or also, if you're a little bit like a simpleton or like an idiot, that's a zero. He's a zero. Like, so DJ Lewis says, if we are on a spinning ball with a liquid hot magma core, why is the bottom of the oceans cold? Well, they're not. I mean, if you go down to very deep oceans, you will see those, they call them chimneys, I think, where you have the hot, because it's so deep down that you have these chimneys or vents or something. And yeah, but vents, yeah. And I think that's because they're so deep down that you have the magma and so on underneath there, right? And also the earth crust is quite thick, and we should count ourselves lucky that it is. Yeah, also Clint says they are cold because they're not getting as much sun down there. Yeah. Now, no, I think the Earth is banana shaped. Must be. Yeah. Yeah. So, what do you expect, EarthLab USK? What do you expect will be the future of Norway in a Europe in decline? Interesting question. So let's tackle that last if we can. Homeplan says Europe isn't in decline. Well, in many ways, it's not. I absolutely agree. But if we look at the birth rates, it is. So it's a bit difficult because it depends on political decisions. Now, Europe right now, Norway right now has a problem. The problem is taxes, and because of the taxes, Norwegian economy is hurting, and it's hurting because people from foreign countries are not investing in Norway as a general rule because of because the taxes are unpredictable and high, and a lot of people with their own business, they are leaving the country because of the taxes. And I am considering that myself. So Norway will be the wealth that we have in Norway. And add to this that they now think it's all fine and good to spend a huge portion of the Norwegian pension fund on the war in Ukraine. So all of this added together means that the wealth that Norwegian state has built up will not be there in the future, unless something happens that we don't know about. And that will be a problem. So in 20 years, I'll be 72. And I think in 20 years, Norway will not be a good place to be. And if I'm still around, I think I do not want to be in Norway. Yeah. So Kevin Badger says spending pension money on wars is crazy economics. Absolutely. Absolutely. Cherokee Twilight says come to America. Well, I'm hoping that Trump will pull off the zero tax on income under $150,000 per year. I hope that he can pull that off. Yeah. Homeplan says moving isn't a failure. It is knowing where you need to be. Nations, states, and cities should respect this. Absolutely. Now we have this disgusting thing in Norway. They call it the exit tax. So if you have wealth, like a business, they will take almost half if you move out of the country. Yeah. It's Clint, it's extortion. It's the attitude here, and they will say this not in the same word, not using the exact same words as I'm going to use now, but they will say that if you're successful as a business owner in Norway, it's because of Norway, not because of you. It's because of the unique Norwegian social democracy. It's so rude, and these people are so full of themselves, these politicians who never built anything. The problem with my books, by the way, and English edition, which there is no English edition right now, hopefully there will be in the future. The problem is actually the attitude America first. American publishers, they do not want to translate books because they would rather just publish American books. That's the attitude, and it's sad, but that's how it is. Let's see. Yeah, so we'll see what happens, but it's very simple, and I think most hardworking Norwegians who have their own business, they have figured this out themselves. We have all figured this out. You need to move out, and if we should get a window by that I mean we get a conservative government in place and they get rid of the exit tax for a while, then that's your window. That's when you need to get out. So it's either getting out or working myself to death, because I will never be. I'll stop complaining. Yeah. So I talked about this maybe yesterday, maybe before. I'm going to talk about it again. I'm sick and tired of the cold weather. It hurts my neck. So, somewhere near the coast, East Coast, I think. I don't know the climate in Florida so well. I could start in Florida, move up, and see. I've learned that Pennsylvania has cold winters, so that's too cold. So Then I have to go south. The Carolinas, yes, sounds good. Yeah. So, yes. That's it for now. And yeah, we'll meet. Are those blue states? The Carolinas? Florida is a red state. I'm very open about the fact that Carolinas are red. I think that a lot of people here, they would say, I wouldn't want to move there. You have a church on the street corner there, and they are all crazy. You know what? I would be fully able to handle the crazy church people if I didn't have to pay half my income in taxes. You know, so and I don't think that is the case. I think that's the stereotypical thing that we here will say. I don't think it's like that in real life. Yeah, Florida is better option to avoid taxes. Yes. Next to Trump. Yeah. Yes. Florida is hot and weird. I think I've seen on the TV that there are lots of old people in Florida. But that's fine as well. I'm getting old too, you know. Not yet, but you know. So, okay. Yes, that's all for now. I want to thank you for joining here. We have a great community here. Thank you for being part of this great community. Okay, wonderful. We'll talk soon. And again, thank you.